What's going on, guys? BASSFZz here, and today I'm going to do a video that has been requested quite a few times actually, and that video is, what's my opinion on the alt-right? Well, I actually held off on doing this video for quite some time because honestly for a long time I really couldn't give anyone a concrete answer on what my opinions of the alt-right was, mostly because I personally didn't completely understand the complexities of the alt-right at the time. But upon actually stopping and putting a little bit of thought into it, I realized that I myself, and a lot of other people actually, made the alt-right much more complex than what it actually is. And I find listening to people discuss the alt-right also exhibit what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, they're wrong, but misinformation about it, or more lack accuracy about what's really going on with the alt-right. Because the people in the alt-right are actually, it's very simple. In fact, so simple, I don't really understand why anyone really needs to talk about the alt-right apart from how simple it is. But then I realized what the problem is, and why people, have such an issue with the alt-right. And so I guess I'm going to explain it right now. My opinion, so I guess I should start the video off with what is the alt-right? We should define our terms. That's oftentimes the best thing to do when you're starting a philosophical discussion. And to put it simply, which is why I made the preface I just made, simply put, the alt-right is, well, the alt-right is still the right. I mean, there you go. So whatever you feel about the right wing that's pretty much the alt-right. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably really confused because you're like, well, what's the point of having a different label for something to describe the same phenomena? That doesn't make any sense. And you're right, it wouldn't make any sense, except there's one important caveat to the alt-right that really makes it the alternative right. And that is, from what I understand, after listening to even some people I call my friends in the alt-right speak, the alt-right really is just about a bunch of people on the alt-right, on the right, or conservatives or more conservative leaning people who are upset with the current establishment, upset with the current people who are leading the conservative movement or leading the right-wing policies or the right-wing movement. They are not fans of these people. They don't think these people do a great job accurately reflecting them. And more than that, a lot of them feel that a lot of conservatives oftentimes kowtow or sacrifice their conservative values in order to appeal to the obviously much more popular and left-wing ideology. This is actually where the term conservative, that's what the term conservative describes. It describes a conservative who is willing to allow his values or sell his values out in order to allow some other person to come and enact their will upon them, which is, kind of like a cuck. A cuck will allow some other man, usually a black guy, to come and have sex with his wife. I mean, it's a very crude term, certainly, but that's really what it means. It just means you're letting someone else, you're letting someone else's ideologies or someone else's feelings dictate how you should feel. I think I'll give you a good example of cuckservative or cuckservative behavior. I'm pretty sure everyone remembers what happened when the Trump tapes came out and a bunch of people were whining and crying about that. A couple of conservatives, I think even Mitt Romney was one of them, Glenn Beck definitely, a couple of conservatives talked about how morally reprehensible it was that Trump had a conversation about how women will let him do things to them, and a lot of people would describe that as cucky behavior, and that they sacrificed the best chance of defeating Hillary Clinton, or they rescinded their support for Trump over something as minute as some clip 11 years ago where Trump just talks about a very real phenomenon that women will sacrifice their bodily integrity to get some money. They do it all the time. They do it now. So it's not really a revolutionary concept, but that's what the alt-right is upset with. They're upset with people like that who will just, throw individuals out to the wayside in order to appeal to the left wing, in order to appeal to the liberal-minded people, the progressive-minded people with their frilly-frolly, women are the greatest thing that ever happened. They throw away traditional family values to the wayside in order for whatever progressive values are. And I'm not even entirely sure what progressive values even are, but whatever. From what I understand, that's really what the alt-right is. A bunch of people who are upset with the current establishment of the right wing, and they don't like their leaders, so they're calling themselves the alternative right, because what really the alt-right should be represented by is the fact that they are much more staunch than the current conservatives of yesteryear. They believe themselves to be the true conservatives, that they're going to hold steadfast to the way they believe. And again, this is as far as I understand it. If I'm wrong about that, then I will accept being wrong. But from talking to people on the alt-right and listening to people talk on the alt-right, that seems to be what it is. They don't like the current establishment, and they are still right-wing. They just don't want to associate themselves with the conservatives. So with something as simple as that, just a group of people who are disconcerted with the current leadership around them, why exactly do the alt-right get so much shit from people? And why are so many people call the alt-right racist, sexist, and xenophobic? Well, the problem actually stems from this. A lot of people have confused the alternative right for white nationalists. See, what I've noticed with the alt-right is that there are a lot of white nationalists in the alt-right movement, and a lot of people mistaken nationalism for alt-right. They mistaken these two people to be one and the same, and oftentimes they can be. Usually a lot of white nationalists are alt-right, but a lot of the alt-right are not white nationalists, and that is why people completely, that's why I imagine that is the real reason why people would like for me to talk about my opinions on the alt-right. So really this video would actually be what are my opinions on white nationalism, because that's actually what everyone describes when they talk about the alt-right. Hell, even a couple of months ago, Sargon McCall made a 30-minute video talking about what is the alt-right, and what he actually described was white nationalism. That's literally what he does. He doesn't describe the alt-right, because the alt-right is as simple as the group of people who are right-wing, but they don't like the current establishment and the people leading them. So they're going to be more staunch conservatives. That's the end-all be-all of it, or what should be the end-all be-all of the alt-right. The real issue, or the real problem that people are seeing, are actually the white nationalists. Hell, I mean, from looking at Twitter and watching YouTube videos, sometimes I don't even think the alt-right white nationalists even understand that they're more white nationalists than they are alt-right. And I mean, to be fair, nationalism does seem to be more of a right-leaning political ideology anyway, so it seems to be natural that that would be the case, or that would be where these people would find their home. But again, white nationalism unto itself is not the alt-right or the whole of the alt-right, but it seems to be the only thing people actually discuss when they talk about the alt-right, because really that's the only thing you can really discuss when you talk about the alt-right, because that's only what people see. I mean, the real discussion about the alt-right should be, why do you dislike the leaders who are currently, supposed to be serving you but aren't? Not, why do you think that Mexican people don't need to be in the country, or why do you think blah, 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 whatever white nationalists believe. And I do know a little bit of what white nationalists believe. And I do know this, I can say this, since this video is going to transfer over into more accurately my opinion on white nationalists. I don't really like any nationalist movement at all. Or more accurately, I don't really like any racial nationalist movement. It's a very peculiar thing to me, mostly because there's nothing about the human genome that prevents one race of people from reproducing with another. At least as far as I know, I've never heard of a race of people not able to make a child with each other. I mean, an Indian person, I guess, can make children with a Mexican person. So, I mean, with no real genetic difference apart from the fact that you have different skin tones and different facial and bone structure, I don't really pay much attention nor care too much about racism or races or all of that. I mean, I acknowledge the fact that that there are differences between the races. I mean, you only need eyes to see that. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't be able to call a black person, a white person, if there wasn't some type of similarities between those we call black people and those we call white people, and some kind of difference between those we call black people and those we call white people. It's clear that there are differences between them. Is one better than the other? Is one worse than the other? I don't really think so, because we're all still individuals at the end of the day, and unless we can evaluate each other on an individual basis, I can't really say wholesale any group is better or worse than the other, because I don't friggin' know. And that's why I don't care too much about race. So when white nationalists come along and they believe, what I hear a lot of them say, they believe that racial groups have a right to their own countries, their own nations, and they deserve that. And I don't really think that holds a great degree of water, mostly because of human history. I don't really know if you can call that a right, considering the fact that Native Americans are almost like quite literally nearly extinct. I don't really think that's something you can call a right, that racial groups have a right to exist in their own countries on account of that's never been upheld fucking anywhere. There's never, I don't think there's ever been a place in history where people have just kind of existed on their own and no one came and conquered them. I mean, maybe like recently now, which I guess is contradicting myself a little bit. There's like this one island off in, I think off the coast of Australia or somewhere, where there's a bunch of excuse me, there's a bunch, I don't want to call them savages, but a bunch of people who are still stuck in the Stone Age, for lack of a better word. I mean, they lack complete technological advancement somewhere in some other country, and that's the only place I've heard where those people just kind of hang out and do what they will there, because they'll kill anyone that comes by. But apart from that, I mean, I think pretty much Europeans, which is incredibly ironic when you think about it, Europeans conquered a lot of, I mean, even if you go, the history of Japan is just filled with Japanese people fighting each other for a long period of time, and even Japanese people trying to go out and conquer other areas as well. So I mean, so just in terms of invasion and conquering, that's just something that human beings have done. So then to say in contemporary modern times that a racial group of people, have a right to exist or have their own nation doesn't really hold much water to me, because no one actually believes that. No one actually believed that anywhere, that a group of people should be able to just stay and be, because nowhere has that ever really happened where people could just be. Europeans conquered or went out to go conquer lots of places. Same thing. I mean, just groups of people everywhere. I mean, even Russians. So it doesn't really hold, that ideology from white nationalism doesn't mean much to me, because it's not accurate to reality. That has not been what human beings have done. Human beings have not left other groups of human beings to their own devices. So I mean, to that end, I can't co-sign with that. Another thing I can't really co-sign when it comes to white nationalists is definitely, I would say is definitely obviously the racism, and I think that's not, okay, we'll end right there. I don't really think I need to go into a long-winded rant or tirade as to why I'm not a fan of racism. Do I need to do that? I don't think I need to. But I'll do it anyway. Briefly. I see a lot from people of the white nationalist persuasion talk a lot about IQ, or average IQ, of black people, white people, and Asians. I don't really know what the average IQ of Mexicans are. I don't think they discuss that. I mean, if they do, I haven't seen it, but they probably do. They go like this: the average mean of the IQs of black people is 80. For white people, it's 100, and for Asians, it's 105. Now, to me, this doesn't mean anything to me. There's nothing. There's nothing they even do with this information. They just say it. They just have conversations about it. They just say the average IQ of black people is 80. They're not that smart. But nothing is done with that information. I don't know what the point is of saying that. I don't know what they're trying to say. I mean, other than saying that black people are borderline retarded on average, which is literally true. I mean, the IQ of 80 is literally bordering on mentally challenged. White people having an average IQ of 100 is just that average intelligent of a human being, and Asians having an IQ of 105 is just slightly above average. I mean, an IQ of 105 really is not. An average of 100 isn't all that much. So again, I just don't really know what information they're trying to convey by telling me the averages of people's IQ, because it doesn't tell me about an individual person. I mean, I can't treat, if I met a black person but they happen to have an IQ of 190, I can't treat them like they have an IQ of 180 just because the average IQ is 80. That's just unreasonable. And in the same capacity, if I met a white person with an IQ of 95, I can't treat them like they have an IQ of 100, because they don't, even though the average is 100. It's so, I mean, again, unless you're talking about the average groups of IQs means absolutely nothing. It just honestly, it just looks like they're just trying to feel better about being white. I don't really see much of what is. I don't really see what the point is of talking about average IQs, because averages are not individuals. And since I'm an individualist, I believe people should be treated based on their individual actions, their individual merits, not that of a group. So that means nothing to me. It just sounds like they're just trying to feel better about being white, honestly, and at the behest of black people, because reasons. I don't really know why they feel they need to put down black people in such a capacity. I can even go further than this. There's a couple of months ago, I listened, there's actually a couple of songs like this where they'll parody popular pop songs and talk about their white nationalist ideology. And there's this one called I Kissed a Groid, where it's a parody of Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl song. And that was the first time, literally in years, I've actually been offended by something on the internet. It's actually funny. It's the first time I literally saw something on the internet, and it actually hurt my feelings, because it's just this white woman talking about other white women having sex with black people, and that's wrong because that is why. I mean, I can link the song down below. There's no real discernible reason as to why black people are terrible when dating white women. It just is because, yeah. And that's it. It's just the assumption that black people are just terrible and shouldn't date white women because reasons. And that was the first time I stopped and I thought about that. And I was like, well, that's no real evaluation of the person's character. I mean, what if the black person is really nice? You mean to tell me just because he has got dark skin, he shouldn't be able to have sex with white women because reasons? And interestingly enough, I remember I did a video on OkCupid some time ago, and I've seen plenty of times where there are a bunch of white women that didn't even want to date black guys. So, I mean, honestly, I mean, I've seen some white nationalists, hold fear of this. I think they use the hyperbolic term white genocide. And I've actually seen a couple white nationalists make videos about how the media tries to push or portray interracial relationships as if that's a commonplace thing. And maybe here in Florida it's somewhat common, but not really so much. I mean, mulattoes or mixed race people here in America only make up like 4% of the population. You won't find very many mulattoes anyway. I mean, so racial mixing is a problem I've seen with white nationalists, but it's not a problem that I even think merits any sort of discussion because, again, they're only a fraction. I'm not even a fraction. 4% of the population here in America is that of mulattoes. I mean, so if a white nationalist is afraid of black people having sex with white women because they think they're going to dilute the white race, it's just absolute foolishness. I mean, first of all, black people only make up like 13% of the population. Let's just slash that in half. 13% of that, I mean, is actually like 6.5% would be males, just if black people is 50-50. And then we have to factor in that 6% of males into which ones are incarcerated. So then you're working with, let's be fair, we're working with 5% of the population. Somehow it's going to have sex with 33% of white women and dilute the white race. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And then we have to factor in the fact that there are some white women that don't even want to date black men. So that 5% of black men are just going to have to go around and just have a real, just have sex with all of the white women to really put a dent, or really to bump out the population of a lot of people. It's really not any concern at all. I don't really understand why white nationalists are even afraid of racial mixing, because it's just not even a problem. It's just not even a thing to really even address. If you look at the basic one-off mathematics of what I just did here, I calculated, and this is being gracious, 5% of the population are black males. Just off of the top of my head, averages that I learned are just, census I've seen years ago. Just that assumption. We have to assume that 5% of the population of black males are somehow going to have enough sex with 33% of the population of white women to bump up the 4% of mulatto people that currently exist. It's just ridiculous. It's foolishness. And so, I mean, there's nothing really from any white nationalist standpoint I can truly genuinely co-sign with or even understand. So I guess finally, I can say, after just talking about a couple of the points I've heard from white nationalists, a couple of things I just fundamentally disagree with. I just fundamentally do not see the case of white nationalism. I just have to say, final verdict, I don't like it. It's incredibly racist against black people because reasons. I don't understand. I can't find any discernible reason as to why white nationalists don't like black people aside because that's why. A lot of the problems that they have, I mean, just really have no basis. Again, believing that people have a right to exist or have a nation of their own. I mean, it sounds nice. It sounds great. But even in America, that still doesn't hold much merit because, again, talking about colonialism, we're talking about the fact that half of the population or half of the culture of America, quite literally, is still pretty Mexican. Like the west coast of America originally was filled with a bunch of Mexicans, Mexico, and it was annexed into America. But the culture didn't change. It didn't become different. You still have a bunch of Mexican people there, or Mexican dissenting people there who mixed in with white people. So I mean, the culture of America literally split half of the West Coast is Mexican. So you've got Mexicans and you got Native Americans and you've got black people. I mean, America, I can't say it's a nation filled with white people, sure, but to say it's a white nation just would not be entirely accurate. I mean, they have white nationalists in Europe have much more of a point here, saying that Europe belongs to them and they're entitled to that. Sure, they have a point there, but again, that's kind of ironic considering that Europe and Britain, they were the people who were, historically speaking, they were the individuals who were doing a lot of the conquering. But of course, you can't judge people on the past. I'm just saying, it's ironic that in the past, they were the ones going out conquering people, and now in the present, they're the ones who are like, hey, can you guys just leave us alone? It's a funny fact. It's ironic, I think. It's funny to point out. But as far as them actually having a leg to stand on that belief, I don't really think they do. I don't think that's reasonable to believe that. No one has thought that that was reasonable in terms of history. I just can't co-sign with that. I don't think that'd be the case. I certainly don't think America should be the hub of that they believe America should be an individual place where only white people should thrive. That's utterly ridiculous, considering that white people had to come and take America from the indigenous population and then nearly wipe out the indigenous people, almost like literally. Like that's, I think, a literal true genocide actually is what happened with the Native Americans. Which again, I'm not saying this to, beat down on white people. I'm just saying the idea that a nation belongs to that race of people doesn't hold much weight consistently looking throughout history. I mean, only Japan really seems to be the only place where only Japanese people have just stayed there and did their own thing. And that in China too, as far as I know, but I could be wrong there. And then there was, I mean, they had, whatever. So, final verdict, my opinion, really on the alt-right first would be, they don't really bother me all that much. I mean, there are a lot of shit posters who are really just white nationalists, but the people who are truly alt-right, they're cool. They're fine. I mean, they're just right-wing people who don't like the current establishment. White nationalists, I don't really think they have a leg to stand on. I don't like how overtly racist they are for no real apparent reason. I really don't understand why they're so racist. There's no real reason why I can discern. And I just don't think that they have a leg to stand on much of any of the points that they have. And that includes white genocide. I mean, if their problem is the fact that white people aren't breeding, the only solution there would be to find a woman and, well, have children with her. Seems pretty simple enough to me, but whatever. And those are my thoughts. And if you don't like them, well, that's unfortunate, but I can't do nothing about that. So with that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click that like button. Yeah, shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.